We also have a 4-star general who's on record saying that he saw these plans, that they were going to go overthrow all of these governments.
Let's talk about this Wesley Clark memo that he never saw. Okay, so 4-star General Wesley Clark.
He never saw it?
Yeah, he says so in the C-SPAN interview. You don't remember this? He's talking about it. He says
that
this guy.
He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. I said, well, don't show it to me.
But your only evidence is the guy who never read it. You realize how ridiculous this is. You could, if you were a historian writing a book, you'd have to cut this out of the book because you're relying on the hearsay of someone that never even read the document, much less you or I have never read the document. It's a ridiculously low bar of evidence you'd have to consider this memo and everything implied by it important.
I mean, I don't know how else to say this, dude.
The failed comedian Dave Smith got absolutely wrecked by Coleman Hughes in this Israel-Palestine debate. Take a look.
And there's no other country that we would call a democracy who behaves this way. It's like, this is, I don't know. I just find this whole thing to be so goofy. Like, either this is Israel, either you're saying Israel has a legitimate claim to Gaza and the West Bank, or you're saying they do not. And if they do not, then they have to stop occupying them. And if they do, then they have to give citizenship to the people that they control. So it's really fundamental Western civilization stuff.
So the analogy to slavery is a bad one for many reasons. But first, yes, Jefferson and Southerners in general, they feared, partly based on Haiti and other examples, that if they gave slaves freedom, it would result in a race war. And this was highly motivating for Southerners. It turned out to be completely wrong. Now, there was a lot of evidence at the time that this wouldn't happen, namely the fact that you had black people living very peacefully all over the North with no problem. You even had free blacks in the South with no problem. And so you would have had to cherry pick massively to look at the Nat Turner revolt, say, erase all the other evidence of peaceful coexistence between whites and blacks and say, we can't let these people have freedom because look at Nat Turner. Not only that, there was no, anytime there was black leadership, the most famous black leader, the most important black leader in the aftermath of the Civil War was Booker T. Washington, right? You can make the same argument about like the Civil Rights Movement, right? We can't give them voting rights because then they're going to make decisions that are going to be terrible. It's going to be a race war. They're going to destroy us. They're going to, whatever, slaughter us. Every single popular black leader, Booker T. Washington, utterly peaceful, had the total faith and devotion of the black community. He was the most beloved figure, and he was fundamentally nonviolent. Martin Luther King, absolutely the most beloved figure within the black community, much more so than Malcolm X at the time. And even Malcolm X in his most radical mood, never...
He wasn't a terrorist, yeah.
He wasn't a terrorist. So there was an enormous amount of evidence in the case of African Americans in the United States that the likely result of loosening the chains was not going to be a race war. It's just that people ignored that evidence.
But
let's translate that to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They leave Gaza. 2 different countries impose a harsh blockade in response to rockets against Israel, and one of those 2 countries gets October 7th and not the other. So one question I have for you is like, why doesn't Hamas attack Egypt? Why can't they spare a single rocket for Egypt if it's all about the blockade and occupation?
No, I mean, obviously, because their hatred of Israel is on a whole different level. And also, like, yeah, I don't know, like, there's
So then it's not all about the blockade and the...
No, it's not. No, it's not all. A lot of it's about the creation of the state of Israel. A lot of it's about the fact that they view that as their land, that a lot of them did get kicked out of. Of course, all of this stuff is involved. But anyway, back to your point, though. But, like, so say there was a higher risk. And again, I wasn't saying, I wasn't saying, a lot of times when people make logical analogies, people say, well, that's a bad analogy because the situations aren't the same. But there's a difference between equating 2 different things and making a logical analogy. The claim isn't that they're the same. But let's say there was going to be a real increase in crime, or let's say there was that some of the black leaders were more radical and were, hold on, let me just finish, and were advocating violence. Is the answer then continue the institution of slavery? I mean, the thing is no, right? It's obviously, and look, the thing about this is with all of this stuff, with all of this, I just feel like to be a defender of Israel requires you to not be like fair-minded to both groups here. It requires you to think of like, oh, but think about the danger that the Israelis might have to deal with if they were to give these people a state. It's like, yeah, think about the danger that the Palestinians are in being militarily occupied. Like, how are you going to sit here and tell these people that you guys have to embrace nonviolence, your leaders all have to be nonviolent leaders, while the Israeli leaders can be as horrifically violent as they want to? You know, you call Hezbollah a terrorist organization, you call Hamas a terrorist organization. I'm like, fair enough. I don't really object to that categorization. I don't exactly see why the IDF wouldn't also be categorized as a terrorist organization.
So,
it's like,
but here's the crucial difference. The crucial difference is that Israeli society, as we've discussed in this conversation, if they feel they have a partner for peace, are capable of offering, of negotiating in good faith and making an offer because they don't want to serve in the army for the rest of time. They don't want to send their boys to fight these wars. Hamas rejects the two-state solution, period. So,
but we just talked about so does Benjamin Netanyahu.
Without, yeah, okay, but Israel is a democracy and they will vote Netanyahu out of power if they feel that the other side is capable and interested.
But they've made him their longest-serving prime minister in their country's history. So, like, they're not voting him out of power that much.
Hold on. This happened, as you yourself admitted, not even reluctantly. I don't mean to phrase it that way. The second Intifada, Israel offered a two-state end of conflict, period. It was rejected by the Palestinians, and then the second Intifada was launched. This was, mothers sending their kids on 2 different buses to schools because a bus was getting blown up every 3 days, right? Which was traumatizing for a country the size of New Jersey. I can't imagine how I would react having grown up in New Jersey if there was 2 bombs going off a week just in my state alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would demand of my government to absolutely do what it had to do to make us safe. Not only that, the fact that this came right after an offer of peace and what Shlomo Ben-Ami called the biggest effort ever to pressure an international leader on any issue to end this conflict, because the world, my God, we have to see this conflict end at some point. It's so heartbreaking. The problem with this is that Israeli society can move because it's a democracy. Hamas can't move. Hamas is absolutely committed to rejecting the only solution that could bring an end to this conflict. And so Hamas is like a rock, whereas Israel, object as much as you want to Netanyahu. I'm not going to defend him. I'm not going to defend Smotrich. I'm not going to defend Ben-Gvir. Israel is a democracy that can move to the left if the opportunity came, sign a peace treaty that will be inked for all time. How the hell do we get that with Hamas running the Gaza Strip when every single time they are asked, they say, we reject any alternative for all time, except between the river and the sea?
Yeah, there actually have been different periods of time where Hamas leaders have said they would accept 67 borders, but they have also a lot of times said they wouldn't. And so
including over and over again recently.
Remember, he admitted himself the reason why Hamas has a problem with Israel is not because of the borders or the boundaries. It's because Israel exists in the first place. He said, probably a big reason why Hamas hates Israel is because of its founding from the beginning in 1948. They don't want Israel to have any land. They don't want Israel to exist.
And in their charter.
Yeah, I'm not even like arguing with you on that detail. But it's always like when you say like Hamas. First of all, I actually disagree with fundamentally with your premise that democracies like have this ability to move. I think actually one of the kind of counterintuitive, strange realities is that often democracies get very stuck. And for example, like the political system in the United States of America really has not like fundamentally changed nearly as much as the political system in China has over, say, like the last 40 years. And they did it through a one-party dictatorship. They still call themselves because the one party says business is good now, and then all of a sudden it's a drastically different thing than it was before. But regardless of that, yeah, but like you can say there's a lot of things Hamas could do that would be a lot better than the things that Hamas has done and could do now that would be better than the things they're doing. Israel also can end the war. It's not true that only one side could do the things that would end the war. And I don't even know if you can call it a war. But
They
Israel
could end this war. But Hamas is just going to restart the war.
It's not even really a war, man. Like a war, you kind of think of as like two governments with militaries battling. It's a captive
Hamas has
people.
What, 20,000, 30,000 people. That's not a war. Hamas has 30,000 fighters or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, it's a captive people who have been held stateless without a military of their own being like annihilated. I mean, like, yeah, I don't think war is exactly the right word. But regardless of that, Israel also has the opportunity.
Notice how Dave is very sly when he accuses Israel. He doesn't say it's a genocide. He'll just be like, well, it's not a war, and it's kind of like an atrocity. And he'll make it so that, he's not definitively saying anything, but he'll sneak it in there.
Could simply say, we're going to stop militarily occupying the West Bank. We're going to pull those, and we're going to live in 67 borders. And you do what you want to do, but if you attack us, we're responding. They could do that too, and they have not done that.
Yeah,
but
well,
I do just
hold on.
again,
So,
hold on.
again,
Let me just get a points out here because I'm listening to what you have to say. Again, I find this to be like kind of fascinating. Every time I debate or have a discussion like this about the topic, I'm just always struck by the fact that you have we're halfway around the world. There is a long-standing conflict that's going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But yet, when you talk about this again, which, by the way, I'm with you on, I think we should think about, what would it be like to live in a state the size of New Jersey where there's school buses being blown up every day. Listen, I live in the state of New Jersey and I have little kids. When you say that, I'm listening and I'm genuinely trying to put myself in that position. And by the way, I am not saying I'm a very good person. I think I would go to a pretty bad place pretty quickly if I thought one of my kids were threatened. However, in this conflict, Gaza is a substantially smaller place than Israel and has way more bombings going off, way more innocent people being killed. And so I just always find it interesting that okay, we're going to put ourselves in the Israeli shoes. Okay, I'm fine to do that. Let's do that. Could we also attempt to do that to the other side here?
Easily. I'll do it right now. I'll do it right now. Hold on. I'll do it right now.
Thousandfold
I'll do it
worse.
right now, Dave. This is the point I tried to make before, but I don't think I made it precisely enough. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of Palestinians for a moment. Now, we know from the history of the 20th century, whether it is the partition of India and Pakistan or the partition of Sudan and South Sudan more recently, that when you have a situation like this, a gruesome situation where two peoples can't get along and there's slaughtering on both sides, it seems like pretty much the best formula we have is something like a partition along roughly ethnic lines. It's not a perfect solution by any means, but Sudan and South Sudan are fighting with each other as states a lot less than they did when it was one state for 50 years of brutal civil war. So, if I'm a Palestinian in Gaza right now, purely looking from my own perspective, sure, I would absolutely want Israel to end the war, to alleviate my immediate suffering. But I would also like to think that I would understand the regime that rules Gaza right now is committed to a forever war against Israel, which means if Israel withdraws, ends the war right now, leaves Hamas in power, Gaza is again on borrowed time until the next time that Hamas is able to find a crack in the armor, which always happens. And so, in addition to wanting Israel to end the war, I would really want to see some massive international effort to get rid of Hamas. And I don't know how you do that because Hamas embeds itself in the civilian population and uses them as a shield. But I would understand, just purely from the point of view of me wanting, I'd love to live in a situation like South Sudan and Sudan. We don't have to love each other, but we're not at each other's throats. We could be a frozen conflict like North and South Korea. We can hate each other. The only way you get to a frozen conflict is with a ruling entity in Gaza that could actually agree to a frozen conflict because it's what they want. So how do you get that without getting rid of Hamas? And this is from the Palestinian perspective.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is. I don't really think it's a very reasonable way to look at it from the Palestinian perspective.
Why am I looking at videos of Palestinians protesting Hamas?
Okay,
what's their point of view? Their point of view is exactly what I just said.
Yeah. Like this idea that all the pressure should be wrought on Israel from Dave's perspective, because he doesn't spend his time talking about Hamas. He can pretend like he's, yeah, I'm in the middle and, that's what I do. No, all you do is talk about Israel. You've made that pretty clear. Now, here's another clip from that same debate that I really wanted you to check out as well. Here it is.
Israel returned to 67 borders and they allowed a government to be created in the West Bank, and that government attacked Israel. We're having a new conversation there. And that would be a conversation where Israel might be able to win over support around the world again, because they could go, look, we took our boot off the neck, and look, we got proven right, or something like that. So I wouldn't advise Israel to put their guns down. I wouldn't advise Israel to open their borders, but yeah, they could end this occupation. That's their choice.
Yeah, so I mean, I fear we're going in circles here, but that is what an Israeli would say they did in 2005. Like, we left Gaza, we left Lebanon, and where are the places we're getting attacked from most? Not the West Bank, not the place we're occupying, but the places we left, including the places like Lebanon, where they're not even Palestinian, right? They're not even Palestinian, they're not even Sunni. They have their land. We don't want their land. And so if I were living there, I would say, okay, Dave Smith is telling me that if we withdraw from the West Bank, if we end the occupation, we'll have a much lower chance of terror than if we keep the occupation. But the evidence of my eyes and ears and everything around me is that we are getting attacked precisely from the places that we leave, and less so from the places that we're occupying. And if I put myself in those shoes, I say, well, why should I buy this guy's theory? This guy, he may thinks he understands the psychology of the enemy we're facing, but all of the evidence points in the opposite direction. And why, with all the marbles, with my family security on the line, would I gamble on getting a little bit more sympathy from the world that seems pretty unsympathetic, frankly? Like more UN resolutions against Israel than every country. Like, that seems a little bit of a signal of where world opinion is coming from. Why would I gamble my family's life on whether some Westerners like me a little more, when the consequence of a war with an independent West Bank could be catastrophic?
Yeah, I think that hit on a very important point, and I'll just touch on this a bit. Haviv Retij Gur, who is this Israeli philosopher, I believe, or professor, he said something I think brilliant. From the Israeli perspective, they're getting told two things by two different people. They're getting told by the Gazans and the pro-Palestinians in the West. They're getting told, you have to do X or we will boycott you. We will try to, try to ruin your state. We will try to make sure Israel is a hellhole. We will do everything in our power to label Israel as the bad guy, everything we can to take down Israel, right? That's what they're hearing from the West. And then they turn to Gaza and Hamas and the Arabs, and they're hearing from the Arabs, regardless of what you do, whether you give us land or don't give us land, whether you make peace or don't make peace, whether you try to, appease us or don't try to appease us, we will destroy you one day. So whatever they hear from the West is automatically drowned out. Just from the mindset of an Israeli, they hear Westerners say, make peace or else. And then they hear Hamas say, regardless of what you do, we will kill your kids. Okay, yeah, not a competition. So whatever they hear from here is automatically drowned out. That's what happens in the mindset of an Israeli Jew in Israel. Oh, why don't you just give away more land? Because they've made it clear they don't care about land. They want us gone. Here's one more clip. Nathan Livingstone, Milk Bar TV, exposing the hypocrisy of Dave Smith. So this is a clip of Dave Smith trying to present a conspiracy theory as evidence on Israel and then getting challenged. He claims that Israel is somehow controlling America and making them fight all these wars. And Coleman Hughes is like, what are you talking about? Where is your proof? Take a look.
We also have a 4-star general who's on record saying that he saw these plans, that they were going to go overthrow all of these governments.
But why is it then that I got 4-star General Wesley Clark, Supreme Commander of the NATO forces? Why is it that he told me that he saw the plans? We know this because the 4-star General Wesley Clark himself said that he was out of power at the time, but he went to the Pentagon and he said that he saw plans. How come I have 4-star General Wesley Clark telling me 10 years prior that we had already made the plan? This has been confirmed by 4-star General Wesley Clark that we were going to topple 7 countries in 5 years. Wesley Clark is a 4-star general. He was the head of NATO, and he told Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! That he saw in late 2001 what is become known as the 7 wars in 5 years, that the plan from the neocons in the government was that we were going to overthrow all these governments in the region in the next 5 years.
Let's talk about this Wesley Clark memo that he never saw. Okay, so 4-star General Wesley Clark.
He never saw it?
Yeah, he says so in the C-SPAN interview. You don't remember this? He's talking about it. He says
that
this guy.
He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me.
Rumsfeld, whose sometimes abrasive approach often alienated other cabinet members, produced 20 to 60 snowflakes, these memos, snowflakes a day, 20 to 60 a day. Regularly poured out his thoughts in writing as the basis for developing policy. Every once in a while, one of these ranting Rumsfeld notes to Condi would come. You can almost hear the eye roll. Like, this dude Rumsfeld is drowning us in his little thoughts and his stupid memos. Do you have any evidence that this memo was actually important as opposed to one snowflake in a shifting strategy of 60,000?
The fact is that much of what he said came true, and that's what makes it interesting.
How we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years.
And that this was part of a strategy to overthrow 7 governments in 5 years. And all of them except one have been done. It's literally, he names 7 countries, and there's 1 to go. And that one, by the way, happens to be the one that Donald Trump is flirting with a war with right now, Iran. All the rest of them have happened.
Starting with Iraq, and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
3 of the countries out of 7, almost half the countries have not done regime change, let alone within 5 years, let alone in the specific order prescribed by the memo. And not to mention, we did do regime change in countries not on the memo at all, like Liberia. So there's actually no variable from the memo that actually matches our foreign policy. And
Coleman, my argument here isn't that, again, I'm not saying that memo came to life and exactly what was written down on that has happened. Of course, there were more memos. Of course, there were more decisions that were added in afterward. I'm saying that a 4-star general said the decision had been made, that he had sources in the Defense Department. His sources in the Defense Department.
Who was basing it on what? The memo.
There might be lots of memos that go out every day, but a memo that says we're going to topple 7 countries in the next 5 years, a pretty big memo. That's not just one of the regular memos. That's the point.
Do you have any evidence it was a big memo? Your only evidence is the guy who never read it. You realize how ridiculous this is. You couldn't, if you were a historian writing a book, you'd have to cut this out of the book because you're relying on the hearsay of someone that never even read the document, much less you or I have never read the document. And we know that they were writing 60 documents a day that Condoleezza Rice was putting in the trash. It's a ridiculously low bar of evidence you'd have to consider this memo and everything implied by it important.
I mean, I don't know how else to say this, dude. This just feels so nutty to me. I guess we'll just leave this up to people. Okay. And I'm not a historian writing a book. I'm a guy talking about these issues to the American people. So I don't know. You can decide whether you find that to be a pretty interesting story or not.
Where is your evidence? Tremendous job there by Coleman Hughes. I think that this is very clear, a clear pattern I'm seeing with Dave Smith, with Tucker Carlson, with Candace Owens. They'll throw out wild claims, wild claim here, wild claim there. You know, oh, I didn't say that. Well, I didn't imply. I was just asking questions. Just asking questions here. Don't go after me. No, you're not just asking questions. You're making claims that are false in order to mislead viewers, in order to create propaganda for whatever country, foreign agent you're working for. Coleman Hughes obviously did his research on Dave Smith and brought it to the debate, showed him the truth. I think that he is among the top 10, top 15 pro-Israel advocates at this point. He has debated, he showed Joe Rogan the truth on his own podcast. He has done multiple debates since, and he's able to remain calm. I really respect him. I think you should go check him out on the Free Press. That's he has a new show on the Free Press. Wow, I'm in awe at this incredible performance. And I hate listening to Dave Smith. So seeing somebody put him in his place is therapy. It's therapy to me. If you believe in what we do here over at Jewish Uncensored, consider supporting us in a few different ways. You can support us monetarily by going to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. You can also go to our new merchandise store, IsraelUncensored.com, where we just dropped a bunch of new merch. Additionally, to gain access to exclusive content, you can go to our memberships tab on this channel and join there. And finally, you can share this video with both family and friends in order to share this message with the world. Thank you so much for your support.